Hello out there, and welcome back to one of our College Confidential segments. I'm Jimmy Birch.
I'm Carlos Mendez.
And this is the epicenter of the college football playoff debate these days, thanks to this week's rankings. TCU, number 4 in the middle of it. Baylor, number 7 in the fringes of it. And triggering a lot of discussion nationally, locally, everywhere. What about the Frogs being 4, Carlos?
Well, what about the Frogs being 4? You know, there was a point in this year, in the summer, where I thought it would be a big deal if TCU could have a winning conference record.
You thought 4 in the conference standings would be good, right?
Yeah, they wanted to get back to a bowl, but we're talking about them possibly playing for the whole thing. Yesterday was a big, big day for TCU football. It was a landmark day, you know, a real milestone for them to be considered one of these teams that has this potential. They're sitting at a big boys table in college football right now. It may not last. Who knows if it does last? But it's just like Gary Patterson said yesterday. He saw a tweet from Mac Brown. I saw the same tweet. He said, hey, enjoy the ride. Yeah, enjoy the ride. Enjoy the week. Enjoy the day. You're one of the top 4 teams in the country right now. I think that's something to embrace.
I think fans should embrace that too, but I guarantee you they won't. There will be, you know, there's endless sniping between Baylor and TCU fans. We had all the flyovers with the planes in 2008 with the Texas and Oklahoma situation. It wouldn't shock me if we got some of that, you know, high-profile lobbying going again here between TCU and Baylor down the stretch, because frankly, based on remaining schedule, neither one of these teams should lose the rest of the way. And that's a dangerous thing to say, because as soon as you say that, believe it, that's when you cut corners and your team does lose. But they're both in excellent shape, among the very best of those top 8 teams or so, to run the table and post a number and say, what do you think about me now at the end of the year?
Yeah, and because they are both in good shape to run the table, you have to start thinking about how you're going to differentiate between them when they're both 11-1. And in my mind, and just reading what the committee says, it's going to be about how you win. And this runs counter to what Gary Patterson believes and a lot of other coaches believe, which is just win. You know, that style points don't matter.
Yeah, just that Gary's thing about just win by 1 point. That's not going to help them in Kansas, and that's not going to help them in Austin, and that's certainly not going to help them at home against Iowa State, just winning by 1 point.
Yeah, and in fact, one of the reasons TCU is in this spot is because they beat Kansas State so handily. They cruised in that game. They beat Oklahoma State, ranked at the time, by 42 points. And they beat what was the other rank?
Tech by huge, you know, it wasn't ranked, but they beat Oklahoma.
But again, these are impressive victories. Sure. And now you're measuring yourself against Baylor. You're measuring yourself against Alabama. One of the reasons Alabama's not number 4 is because they had to go to overtime against LSU. Right. So the way you win these games, how you control these games matters, along with strength of schedule, along with head-to-head, along with these other 3 or 4 things that you're thinking about. So you need to handle your business against Kansas. You don't need to go down to a field goal against Texas to win that night. And you need to beat Iowa State like you should beat Iowa State, because you've already done it against other teams, and Baylor showed you that they can do it against a team also, which they did last week.
Yeah, the Baylor's win over Oklahoma was the most impressive of last week's big, you know, statement games on a separation Saturday. And TCU stepped up nicely against Kansas State. I mean, for the 3rd week in a row, you're hearing TCU-Alabama comparisons. This week, even more favorable toward TCU. But, you know, some of the hidden issues going down the stretch, that Minnesota win, they're in the top 25 today. They play 3 teams that are as good or better than they are going down the stretch in the Big Ten. That's probably going to go away as a quality win. Minnesota lost to Illinois when Illinois was playing its backup quarterback, and they're last in their division in the Big Ten. So, and you know, both TCU and Baylor really, in the final analysis, need Oklahoma back in the top 25, and they need that desperately to get, you know, the credit for the top 25 wins, because that's a rotating target. Yeah, they were top 25 when you beat them, but when Jeff Long is delineating top 25 wins last night, he's talking about 2 for TCU, and he's not talking about Oklahoma in that. So the resumes roll as the year goes along, and it's going to be real interesting. I think they'll both be there at 11-1 at the end. I think they'll be very close in resumes at the end once Kansas State and Baylor play that finale, assuming a Baylor win, and that head-to-head game's going to potentially loom very large at the end, I think.
But again, it's a great thing to be talking about at this time of year. It beats, trying to shoot for the Pool and Weed Eater Bowl at this time.
Yeah, it beats, can we be bowl eligible? And, if so, do we have to go to Houston or do we go to Shreveport? This is, you're talking about something a whole lot bigger, better, and more exciting than that. So.
But sometimes you only get one shot, so you've got to try to maximize it.
All right, last thing. Little frogs get it done. Do you see them? It's an unfair question because so many things change. Do you see them being in the top 4 when the smoke clears on December 7th?
Yeah, the team I've watched all season can certainly be top 4. They're certainly deserving of that and worthy of that. But again, we've got 3 games to go for them, 4 weeks to go in this season.
Yeah, I think one of the two will be there. Baylor or TCU. I think Baylor's head-to-head is going to help them at the tail end. I wouldn't rule out if the SEC has some struggles, you might get 2 from the Big 12 end, but if that happens, it's only going to be because a lot of SEC teams have 2 losses. I think from a Big 12 standpoint, what is kind of scary is, Alabama wins a close game against Mississippi State, runs the table, wins the SEC championship, and then at the end, Alabama and Mississippi State both have 1 loss, and they're both in the Final Four, and that takes away one of these spots where mentally assigning to TCU or Baylor right now. So
yeah, you need one of those SEC teams to kind of stand out, to stand above the rest.
Yeah, and run the and then whoever loses, ideally for TCU or Baylor, you want Mississippi State to go into Tuscaloosa, win and end things for Alabama, and
win handily, win impressively.
Yeah. And failing that, then you need for Mississippi State to kind of fall apart, after in the wake of the loss, lose to Ole Miss, and there's a lot of opportunities, there's a lot of potential things that can happen, and it's going to be fascinating. The most important thing to remember is something crazy and unexpected is likely to happen, and we got no idea what that might be. So thanks for tuning us in, and enjoy the rest of the season.